having to do with the backline is where my focus is right now. That said, I'm already seeing some interesting things. And
I had a foot surgery.
Okay. Well, that makes some sense. So, one thing I'm noticing is that her feet are actually kind of doing this. This one is more pronating, and this one is a little more supinating. We see that? Now, there's a little bit of a roll to both of them. Her toes are more spread. She's putting a little more weight into this leg. This leg is bent a little bit, and there's a tendency to kind of drift this way to both of her legs. We seeing that? So that's a little more spiral and lateral line stuff, and less superficial backline specific. However, it's going to affect the superficial backline. So on this side, her superficial backline at that 5th metatarsal fascia of the plantar fascia, this is going to be really constricted and concentrically tighter. Yes, that's how things work. And this is going to be more eccentric. Whereas over here, this is a little more concentric, and this is a little more eccentric. And
Is that also the reason why her foot on that side looks like it's more webbed, and this one is
I
like
got
a little
bunionectomy on this one, which brought the toe back out, but it was like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's part of it. Another part is her tibia here is a little more straight down into the talus, a little more. Whereas her tibia over here is a little more coming this way into the talus. Do we see that? Can we agree that that's a feature she's got going on here? Now, as far as her backlines, so that's number one with backline that I'm noticing, which means she's gonna have more of an arch here. I'm gonna wanna get this, so she's got this pattern. I'm gonna wanna bring that down a little bit, and I'm gonna wanna bring this one up a little bit in terms of her, my brain is dying, post-lunch. Plantar fascia, good Lord, brain. Okay, so now face that way, because I want to take a look at this leg and see what's going on. So we can see how, now she's going to switch it up on me. When she was standing before, this leg was a little more bent. Now she's bending this one a little more. But as she does that, do we see how that's heightening that tilt that she has away? You can really see it from the back. Go ahead and do a nice little shakeout for us. Let's see if she resets into that pattern. Yeah. So this is her plant leg. This leg she's taking some, which is interesting that she had the surgery here. You didn't have surgery here?
Nope, not on that one.
Okay. So this is more stable now because she's had that surgery, and this one's a little less. So she's feeding all of her weight into this foot. So go ahead and now face that wall. So now I want you guys to really look at what's going on. Do we see the difference here?
Oh yeah.
There's a big difference between those two legs. So her hamstrings on this side are relatively even, right? This is relatively centered, but part of that's coming from how she's bringing this in. And this is a little bent, it's a little medially rotated, right? We have this definite skewing of this line right here. So her biceps femoris on this side is really tight, which is playing a part in that spiral line pattern that we'll get to. But that means, that tells me that this hamstring on this side is kind of a major feature for me. That make sense?
If that side's medially rotated, but the biceps femoris is tight, isn't that kind of opposite of what it should? Because if the biceps femoris is tight, shouldn't it laterally rotate?
Well, this down here is laterally rotating in comparison to this up here. Her femur is the one medially rotating, right? Which is coming from stuff on the front. And then down here, her toes, so face the front again, so I can see. And it's not to a big degree, but if we look at her patella and where it's sitting, it's kind of feels lateral here. but when it comes down, it's not between her toes, right? What we'd like to see is more of this, but do you see how when I do that, that bends this out even more
Yeah.
and causes that to almost want to buckle out to the side here? And part of that's because, face this way again so I can show them. You see how she's pulled back here? So what I need to do is get this, and if you look at her Achilles tendon here, she's getting compression here and stretch here. So I need this to come down and this to come up. Because this is starting to fall out, but because she's driving that tibia in, it's forcing her to have a flat arch. Does that make sense? So, what I want to focus on for her in the superficial back line, we definitely have more so on this foot than this foot. Do you see how, let's mark where this malleolus is. Do you see how that's much less than 1/3 is showing? Go ahead and now face me. And this is a little more. It's not quite as far back, right? It's still less than 1/3. We have less than 1/3 here, but it's doing better in terms of its health and stability. This one is much more of this pattern where the foot's like this and the tibia is coming in like that, causing this. So I want to get that, I want to get this sock to come up because it's starting to fall down and get pulled this way. I want this sock to come up. I want this to open up this way, and I want this to open up this way. And just doing that, it reset her tibia a little bit. But of course, that's not going to be enough. She's not going to be able to hold that. So, getting to the table.